Hey guys, well, welcome back to the podcast. So excited to have you here for another episode. And today we have a special guest. We have Ricky, and she is a client that I have worked with for a year and a half. And she absolutely destroyed our time working together, crushed it, and got amazing results, not only physically, but lifestyle transformation, and just really able to show up as the best version of herself and learn how to use all of the skills and the tools that I've given her to implement them into her everyday life now. So today I'm excited to have you here, and we're going to jump into discussing all of this a little bit. But how are you doing today?
Quick pause before we dive into the rest of this video. If you are a woman who's been putting in the work, but you feel stuck in your body, with your performance, in your results, and you feel like you're struggling to balance your career, your personal life, and your fitness goals, this is for you. If you're looking for a smarter and more sustainable approach to losing fat, building muscle, and actually feeling your best, one that works with your hormones, your metabolism, and your lifestyle, then click the link below and book a free call. I'd love to help you build your best body and optimize your health without the burnout. Now let's get into it.
I am wonderful. I'm happy. It's hot and sunny and nice out, which is lovely. I mean, you get that every single day, so
Yeah,
it's exciting.
it's nice for September in Canada though, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful.
That's awesome. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about your journey. And, I kind of wanted to just start off with a little bit of an easy question, kind of ease into it. But what did you really feel like your experience was investing in yourself and doing the one-to-one coaching? And what would you say is kind of at a higher level, some of your biggest wins from the experience?
Yeah, I feel like I was always one of those people that was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. In the gym, I went in, I had my plan. I was like, yeah, I'm eating good. I'm working out. I'm doing cardio. And it was just one of those things where I was so in my head of I know what I'm doing. And then it hit a point where I was like, maybe I don't, because I'm actually not seeing the results that I'm trying to get. And I went through a phase where I lost a lot of weight on my own. But then it was just kind of stayed at that. And then I was like, let me look into this coaching. And then when you were recommended to me, obviously our chat was amazing, first off. And I was like, this is someone who genuinely knows where I want to go and what I want to do. So it was just from start to finish. I feel like it was something I didn't think I needed, and now would recommend to anybody, even if it's I don't know. I feel like coaching is one of those things where people think that you need a coach to kind of get into competitions or to get super muscular or lose weight, but I feel like it's very helpful for anyone at any stage of what you want to do. And I'm so glad that we did it, because I've learned so much, and feel like I learned more than I went into thinking I would learn.
I think that that's the case for a lot of people. And, like you touched on, I think it's really common for people to think that they only would benefit from having a coach if you're a very beginner and you have no idea where to start, or you're super, super high level and you want to compete, like you said, as a bodybuilding competitor or competitive athlete or something to that capacity. But like you said, there's this whole range in the middle where there's people that could 100% benefit from the guidance and the tweaks that a coach can put into your programming, or give you the support or the encouragement that you might need to take it to that next step that does, isn't either at the very beginning or the very end of that spectrum. But it's funny that, you mentioned that first kind of conversation that we had, because I always giggle to myself remembering you being like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I just need a little bit of a push. And I was like, oh, girl, you wait and see.
Not know what I was doing. I think the very first time, because in our first week, you were like, okay, let me track your food for a week, because I genuinely thought I was eating 1,600 calories a day, which also is not enough to build muscle, which I thought it was for sure. And you were like, okay, let's track, let's see. And then my biggest thing that I will never forget is I think I was eating less than 1,000 calories a day. And I genuinely did not realize until you were like, buy a scale, measure your food, and then log it. And I was like, yeah, okay, I got this. And then after I logged it, I was like, I am so inconsistent. This is not even the amount of calories that anyone should be eating. And
not even a baby.
And it was just completely by accident. And I genuinely, in my brain, I was dumping rice into containers and chicken and lots of veggies, but you don't actually realize how many calories go into things. And it just obviously was not that much, which quickly learned. And then you fixed that for me. And now I love food. So.
Well, I think that's a big part of it, right? Like there's kind of two key components. I think there's one situation where people genuinely just don't have the awareness within themselves and their body and their lifestyle to know what they're actually consuming. So you had, touched on a minute ago, though, when we first started, that you were eating healthy, right? And you thought that that was going to produce you the results that you wanted. And I think that there's this, idea that to lose weight or gain muscle or whatever it might be, you need to eat healthy, which you do, but the amount of food that you're eating also matters, right? So, you could be eating the healthiest food in the entire world, but if that's in a surplus and you're eating a lot of calories and you're not moving, you're still going to gain weight. Or, you could be eating really, really healthy, but you're not eating enough. You're only eating one meal a day and you're not going to see any change because your metabolism is slowing down and you're just in such a high stress state that your body's like, whoa, what's going on, right? So bringing that awareness piece to you for you to understand not only where you're starting from, but also how to put together those puzzle pieces piece by piece to understand, okay, like what does a proper serving of protein look like? How many of those per day am I eating, right? Stuff like that. It really allows you to be able to do those things second nature later on by taking the time to teach yourself about it in the beginning.
Yeah. And I also think like the biggest thing that I took away, okay, not the biggest thing, but like one of the biggest things was investing in a food scale. Like I never really thought I needed it. It was like kind of just measuring with like a measuring cup and you're like, okay, this serving size is this. But it's never actually that accurate. And like the scale was super helpful. It's for me to actually be like, oh, that's how much like 30 grams of this is. And so when you get in the habit of using that, and when you were like, yeah, just start off, buy one for like your first week. When I started doing that, I was like, holy cow, this was so different, like such a life changer. And then you like actually start to realize like what goes into your meals and like how much you truly are eating. And I also like, I would wake up a bit later, I think, because it was like not in the middle of COVID, but it was still a little bit more chill when we first started. So I was able to work from home a bit more. So I was able to like wake up later and then go to the gym a little bit later. And I would never eat before my workouts. And then everything just kind of got pushed and like trying to fit like 1,700, 1,800 calories, like bottom end into a day is like so much when your day starts later. So that was like my biggest struggle before we started because my days I wasn't waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah. And, when you have a smaller eating window, it's a lot harder to get in those calories, right? And I think that that's like, a lot of people will wake up and start their day with a coffee, right? They don't even eat food. And then they have coffee, which is an appetite suppressant. And then they're already like overstimulated. So they're focusing on other things. They're not focusing on eating. And then by the time they eat their first meal for the day, it's like 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And it's like, well, how do you expect to eat a sufficient amount of food to fuel your body if you're not eating until like halfway through the day is your first meal? And then you get into those habits because unfortunately our body gets used to patterns, right? So if you're continuously not eating first thing in the morning every day, your body's no longer going to secrete that hunger hormone that's going to tell you it's time to eat first thing in the day because it's like, well, I guess we're not eating first thing in the morning. So we're going to kind of suppress that. And, we'll start getting hungry around 12 o'clock because that becomes that pattern.
I was definitely a culprit of that. A big Starbucks coffee, a vehicle, and then my appetite was suppressed until like 3 o'clock. And then that's when I would eat lunch. And then some days I wouldn't even have dinner. It was just going.
Yep. Yeah. And you're not alone, right? A lot of people struggle with that. And I think that that was one of the main things that kind of stood out to me when we first chatted was that, you had these great goals of really wanting to put on some muscle mass, right? Have more defined arms, grow your glutes, grow your legs a little bit, have more of an hourglass kind of shaped physique. And you had achieved, like you said, the weight loss on your own, but you were sitting in this place where you felt a little bit of like a skinny fat kind of vibe where you were like, okay, the weight's gone, but I don't have this shape and this like firmness and the definition that I've envisioned that I thought would come from the weight loss. So then I was like, well, Ricky, if you want to do that, we need muscle mass, which means you got to eat, girl. And that's exactly what we did. Right. And, it's crazy because I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, when you think of your caloric intake and you say like 1,600 calories, that's what in your head you thought you were eating. A lot of women think that that's a lot of food. Like they're like, oh my God, like anything more than that and I'm going to get fat. Right. But the reality is that it's really not that much food. And we were able to take you from, like you said, under 1,000 calories a day gradually over time, right? Really worked on building that all the way into the height of your build was like 2,600 calories a day. So you were later eating 1,000 calories more than what you even thought was the max that you could ever eat before. Meanwhile, you were eating even less than that, right? So we pretty much like doubled your intake over the course of like a year.
Yeah, exactly. And like the first time I think we ever hit, like when we hit like 2,500 calories, when we got to that, I just like remember being like, holy crap, this is amazing. And I just like, every time our check-ins came around, you were like, so we're gonna do a little bump. And I was like, keep going. Give me like all of the food in the world. Do you know how many times a day I got to eat? It was like, I will say it was a lot, took a lot to getting used to, because like obviously like had a few more snacks than normal, but like it was amazing. And I'm like low-key excited for the winter again. So I just keep raising my calories.
I think too, it's a really great thing to go through to really work on your relationship with food too, right? Because we talk about a lot like the physical side of it, like gaining weight, not gaining weight, your physique changes. But I think a lot of times, like what prevents people from being able to go through that process is the mental barrier and the fear. So to be able to actually push through and kind of trust that process a little bit and see that, okay, I'm actually not going to turn into this like giant blob that I think that I'm going to while eating more is really great for your mentality. Because like you said, like you actually got to a point where you weren't really scared of food anymore. You were looking forward to eating, and you were like feeling like you had more wiggle room when you could go out to events and stuff like that because you didn't feel as restricted. So, how did you kind of feel about the process? Like, because we started in this place where you weren't eating a lot. So how did you feel about the process about eating more food, increasing your calories, and like doing that when we start? Like, how did that change from when we started and I told you that's what we were going to do and you were like, okay, wait, what? To the point of actually doing it?
Honestly, like when we first started and then as our calories raised, I was so terrified. I was like, this is going to be so much food. Like I just, in my brain, exactly like you said, like I was like, I'm gonna get bigger, like I'm eating more food, like this is not going to work. And it was because in my brain, like the process was still the same of how I was doing it. And it obviously, the reason we started working together is because I needed to trust a process, and I put all of my trust into you. And I'm glad I did, because I also just like food and relationships with food is such a touchy thing for a lot of people. And I'm still trying to build a relationship with food. I think everyone kind of is at the end of the day. Like it takes a long time to get there. But it's like if I was eating like some pizza or something one week, I would like feel terrible about it and then try and like do extra cardio and like extra weights and try and work it off. When in reality, it's like if you're eating in your maintenance, like you're 80-20 and like you're raising your calories properly, if like majority of your food is good for you, like it's gonna be okay. And that's exactly what we did. And like as we raised calories, obviously my food was like more like nutrient dense, and you helped me a lot through like figuring out what foods are gonna help keep me full and like kind of help me hit my goals. And as we got up into like eating more calories, I was like, just keep going. Like at this point, keep raising my calories, like I'll just keep eating. And like now I just feel like I'm able to do that without being scared and like feeling bad about it. And also like I was able to lift so much more, and you feel so good when you're able to do that. And like I think it also helps depending on the kind of community that people have. But at my gym, I have like a very good community of people, and we were all kind of going through the same thing of like bulking at the same time. So we would all be feeling the same way, and you have a good group of people to kind of rely on and be like, okay, this is kind of the process right now. We're all feeling a little chunky. We're all feeling a little bloated, but everybody feels the same. And like, I think you kind of get used to it, not used to it, but you kind of, I don't know where I'm going with that, but like get in the momentum of it. You're like, this is the process, trust the process. Like, you know what you're doing, and you talked me through it so much. And like, it's not to say people don't have bad days. And then like, there were definitely times where I was like, I'm not having the best week. I'm not feeling the best about myself. And then I think you would just like sometimes send me a little screen grab and be like, remember this? Like this is
remember where we started from?
Exactly. So now I'm just like a lot more comfortable with it. I think you just have to keep in mind, like, it's a process and you got to trust it. And
yes. That's the thing, right? Like it doesn't work if you don't actually do it, right? If you don't actually do it the proper way. And I think that that's the problem for most people is that one, they don't give it enough time to actually work out to see that it's going to be okay, right? Like they just make this one increase and then see like, oh my God, my weight went up 1 pound on the scale. Like I can't do this anymore. And then they give up. They don't actually give it enough time to work out because they're not trusting the process. They're just, letting that fear get in the way right away. And I think like another point that you made that's really important is setting focuses that aren't so aesthetic based, like during that process. Like if you're focusing on the strength gains, how much more you can lift, how much better your performance feels, your energy is better, your digestion is better, your sleep is better. All of these things are better because you are fueling your body more efficiently. You're able to look at the positive a little bit more than like, okay, maybe I'm not getting my dream physique in this very moment. It's probably going to take 3 or 4 months to get to that point where we can then go and focus on this fat loss phase. And I think the reality too is that a lot of people don't realize that if you don't take that time to really prime your body properly for a fat loss phase, you're not going to get the results that you want out of the fat loss phase. So it's like, what's even the point of doing it if you're not even going to be able to achieve the result that you want and also maintain it because you didn't set yourself up for success like in advance.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I was there when we first started. I remember just like my weight dropping so much because we were getting into the swing of things. And then as we started building and like, sometimes I'd be like, oh, okay, like, gain a pound, gain 2 pounds. And like, it is a scary thing. But then like, one thing I tried to always remember was that like my body is very much changing and I can't just like think the scale is related to fat loss because it's not. And you're going to gain muscle. Like that's the whole point of kind of these experiences. And that was my goal, was to build muscle. And as you're gaining muscle, your scale is going to go up. And so it was just one thing to keep in my mind where I was like, I'm gaining muscle, things are happening, like don't be so scared. And like I just kind of stopped relying on the scale just because it, like, obviously it is telling, but our photos and like taking pictures and comparing them was one thing that got me by really easily, because when I was having those bad days, I would just go back to the app and then look at the photos and be like, starting point, where I am now, like, yeah, it's okay.
I think it's really easy to get wrapped up in the moment, right? And I think that, the thing that is hard with the scale is that when you're using it solely for a measure of weight loss, like you don't want to make body recomposition changes. You just want to physically lose weight, like somebody who's very heavy and is looking to lose weight just for health purposes. And like, okay, the scale can be a great measure of that. But when your goal is to change the entire composition of your body, to build more muscle mass, build more shape, have less body fat, it's going to be very hard to see that reflective on just like a numerical value, right? And I think that a lot of people get wrapped up in that and they don't really fully comprehend that. And for us, right, like I think this is something great to touch on, is that when we do a reverse diet, for some people, they're going to have a response like you did. That was, you actually dropped a lot of weight. I think we dropped like 10 pounds going through the reverse diet. So you were eating way more food, but you lost weight. But that was mostly because we were changing the type of foods that you were eating. So we were reducing inflammation. We were reducing bloating because your digestion was getting better, water retention, all that kind of stuff. You were sleeping better. So you were recovering better. So your body as a whole was less stressed. You now had more energy from more food to be able to train harder. We like worked on the efficiency of your workouts, right? Making sure that we were actually training properly with intent. So your body responded really well to all of those things, and your body made a lot of changes, even though the value of the calories that you're eating more, right? And that just goes to show that it's not always calories in versus calories out. There's so many other factors to that. But for some people, I think they think that like they'll see these Instagram posts or whatever online that are like, not losing weight, like you need to eat more food. And it's like, well, theoretically, yeah, but the purpose of doing that is to prime your body to then be able to go in a proper deficit after, actually for the weight loss or the fat loss, right? Like the goal of a reverse diet isn't to lose weight in the reverse diet. It's to get your body to a healthier state. But some people like you did lose weight in the process, right? Like some fat in the process because of the way that your body responded. But for some people that doesn't happen. It's more of like what we did in our cut is kind of like their process.
Yeah, I think it was like just a really big lifestyle change for me as well. Like as much as I can say, like I thought I was eating healthy, I thought I was doing these things, of which I was eating like decently well before we started, but like my food knowledge just grew so much. And I remember like our first time of me trying to figure out macros, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And you like helped me so much. I was like, I don't understand. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what meals. And like when you were like, you need to sleep a little bit more. And I was like, I don't have time to sleep more. Like that was my max of how much I can sleep. And every single thing that I was doing before just completely turned around in the entire process. Mm-hmm. And like, it was just such a lifestyle change. And now I'll never go back.
Yeah. And I mean, like when we first started, right? Like obviously you have a very high stress job, long hours a lot of the time, on top of your regular everyday life. You have a dog, right? You have like a partner, like a significant other, that you have friends. So there's a lot going on for you. And I think that one thing that was a really great highlight for you is that you were able to learn how to balance all of that a lot better, as well as be able to implement all of the things that we were doing together into your everyday life. Like, you know, like there were times where you were able to go to cottages and you know, would bring certain things with you, but then indulge in other things, or prepare to know that you needed to be back at a certain time so that you could go to the gym, or, you know, you did a really great job at like, it wasn't one or the other. It was like melting these two things in together to actually make it your reality of your life.
Yeah. And that was like such a big change for me too. I like never thought I would be the person that would like go up north and wake up at 7 a.m. to go to the gym and then come back and enjoy the rest of the day and like bring my stuff. Like it was just kind of like, I used to just take it as it was and be like, okay, I'm away this weekend. I'll like get back on track after. But it's just a matter of like being on track and like staying in it. Yeah. Like it's okay to like fall off because obviously things are going to be different and like you're not going to be able to control every situation, but like putting that foot forward and like really just doing the best that you can, it like wasn't a hard thing to do, but it was just something I never was in the habit of doing. And then once I started working with you, it was just like straight go and like focus and like, these are our goals. This is what we're doing. And like, you were such a big motivation too, like on any day where I was like, I don't feel like I did good this week. You'd be like, but wait, all of this happened.
What about this?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like keeping your eye on the prize. Like it was always really easy to do. I just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that we get kind of wrapped up in, this idea that we think that it's so overwhelming that we just like don't really try, opposed to taking, you know, small steps and bringing things into our life piece by piece. And then that builds the change over time, right? And I think that that's what we really focused on from the beginning was, you know, each week, what's like one small thing that we can do to improve? And, you know, this kind of goes back to this all or nothing mindset that so many people have, is that it either needs to be 100% or there's no point in doing anything. And, you know, when we focus on this little bit of, let's just try to be 1% better every day, that makes a big change in the span of a year, right? So, you know, just, I think the perspective, it's a big piece of it as well.
Yeah. And I used to just think that like if I had a few off days, that was the end of it. And then I would like take some time down, or think that like everything that I did was just non-existent at that point. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm down sick for a week. I lost all my progress, like have to start from scratch. And the reality is that you literally barely lose anything at all. Like when I just went to Alberta, I wasn't able to go to the gym. Like our days started at 7 a.m. with 2 little babies. Like it was a very long day. Wasn't able to go to the gym, but I was like walking a lot. I think my steps were at like 13,000 almost every single day. They were like over 10.
Getting those steps.
It was wild. So it's like I was still hitting my step goal honestly unintentionally, but like we were up and moving a lot, and it was just like to keep going. And then when I came back, I weighed myself, and I think I was only like a pound heavier than I was when I left. And like, that was going without the gym for 5 days and like not measuring every ounce of food, but still keeping in mind like the foods that I should be eating and like eating in moderation, like making home cooked meals, instead of ordering out every single time. So I think it was just like keeping your head in the game, and, you know, taking a couple of days down isn't going to hurt you.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of that comes from, you know, making the sacrifices up front to take the time and the initiative to immerse yourself in those things, right? Like when you take the time to really, like you said, like just as an example on, you know, something that we've kind of touched on through here, you found that having a food scale made you very successful because you were able to gain awareness, you were able to understand where changes need to be made, and to allow you to be more specific and accurate with your food tracking. You know, the average person might say like, oh, weighing my food, like that's way too much effort. I don't want to do that, right? But by making the sacrifice to take the time and effort to do that in the beginning, it now allows you to be able to understand when you are on vacation and you don't have a food scale around, how to eyeball that and understand what those things look like a lot more accurately, because you took those 6 months to do it, you know, pretty much to the T, and to make that little bit of a sacrifice to teach yourself what those things look like, or understanding like how to piece together a balanced meal, taking the time to learn, okay, what foods are the most dense in which macros, right? Like you can now look at a plate of food and be like, okay, that's my carb, that's my protein, that's my fat, that's my veggie, right? Where, you know, prior to us doing this, you probably wouldn't even have been able to do that for a lot of things, or understand like, you know, like I could put two chicken breasts in front of you and tell me like, okay, which one is which one is going to be 5 ounces and which one's going to be 7 ounces. Like you'd probably be like, I don't friggin' know. You know what I mean? Whereas now you could do that. I specifically remember one day your win for the week was you being so excited that you were able to eyeball your cheese to be exactly the amount that you needed it to be. But it's because you've done it. Like the repetition is always going to get you to be better at what you're doing, right? It's like getting reps in anything in life. The more you do something, the more it's going to become to you second nature. So the more that you're every day you're weighing, if you weigh your food every day for 6 months, you're going to know exactly probably what those portion sizes should look like. And another thing, you know, that you touched on there is that you've taken also the time and the sacrifice and the effort to build a strong foundation of muscle mass on your body. So now when you do go these, you know, durations where maybe you can't make it to the gym or you're not doing as much intentional exercise, you're maintaining your physique a lot easier than you would have been if you didn't have any muscle mass, because, you know, your metabolism is higher from eating more food and having more lean muscle mass on your frame. And your body is able to, just like function better and more optimally in the everyday movement, right? So it makes a big difference.
Yeah. And like, I think the only times I've ever felt like I used to think if I took some days off, I would come back and like not be able to lift the same. And my body would just like, all of the muscle would just somehow magically disappear.
Here.
Yeah. It was like, it's all going to be gone. But the only times I ever felt weaker when taking any amount of time off, whether it was like 2 days or like 5 days, is when I was getting over like COVID or like being sick. Obviously, then your body is going to feel not great, but like just going on vacation for a week, like I came back and I was like, still sometimes my brain is like, I'm going to lose everything. And honestly, came back like the exact same.
Yeah.
Like,
honestly, sometimes the extra recovery actually gives you a little bit of a boost. You know what I mean? You come back and you're like, I'm feeling strong. I ate some carbs. I had some extra rest.
I think my first day back, I hit like a new PR on hip thrusts, and I just was like, whoa.
Yeah.
How did I do that? It's like the opposite of what I thought was going to happen, which was.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, something we haven't really talked about yet, and you just mentioned here, PRs, is how did you really feel like your mindset changed around focusing on strength in your workouts? Because I know when we first, you know, started together, you were doing a lot, like you were in the gym and you were lifting, but you weren't really like, you know, really focusing on getting stronger, doing smaller rep ranges. Like you were doing a lot of kind of like moderate weightlifting and like moderate rep ranges. And how would you say that like just your confidence changed and your perspective changed with, you know, being able to push yourself from a strength perspective?
I think I was definitely an ego lifter before we started. I never thought I was, and I never thought that I would be like, I ego lift. But no, I for sure did. Like, I feel like because I wasn't super knowledgeable on like proper form, I was just kind of like, yeah, I got this. I'm good. And when we started working together, it was like, I lowered my weights completely. And I really worked on just like keeping my form. And I think a big thing is that when you go to a gym and you're surrounded by all these people who can lift more than you, you get in your head and you're like, yeah, I can do that too. And like, yeah, maybe I can do a lat pull down and have my weight set to something, but that doesn't mean my form is necessarily correct and is going to get me results. And I think that's what I was doing. And then when we started working together, I like took it as start from basics and just as if I had never been in a gym before, start from scratch. And that's what I did. I lowered all my weights. And like now I feel like I can lift what I want and not what I want, worded incorrectly. I lift what I lift and I feel fine about it and I feel good about it. And it's like gradually increasing and doing the reps and the form to get you the actual results. And now I feel like I can lift a lot more now that I'm not solely focusing on just like trying to lift heavier. Because before I was like, every week I'd be like, okay, I hit this weight last week, so I have to raise it 5 pounds the next week to kind of, you know, gain muscle. And that's not really
like
how
progressively.
Progressive overload is the word I was looking for. And I thought that that's what I was doing. And I genuinely was not. So it was like, I would just every week be like, okay, last week I could lift 25s. This week I'm going to lift 30. And then next week I'll do 35. And it's just not the reality. And now that I'm not focusing on just like trying to lift heavier and I'm actually have a set goal, it's a lot easier for me to build muscle because of those rep ranges. And it's like, I think the first time I ever saw you give me hip thrusts and it was 4 reps of 15, 4 sets of 15 reps. I'm tired. And I was like, you want me to do 15 reps of these hip thrusts? And I was like, that is a lot. And I used to try and load the bar and do as much as I can. And then I realized, no, drop the weight.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah, it's just like not going to work at all. And I was like, you're trying to kill me. You're trying to murder me for sure. But then you just like lower the weight and you do the weight for that exercise, which is going to ultimately get you what you want. And when I stopped focusing so much on lifting heavier every week is when I actually started to notice results.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, you know, a lot of that comes from this like when we think about progressive overload, I think that because it's this term that's thrown around so much on social media and fitness influencers and whatever else, it's looked at as more of just like a numerical situation where, you know, okay, week 1, you do this, week 2, you add this, like, again, going back to the sense of being in tune with your body and being aware of your body. I don't think that that's properly taught to people to understand like what weight they should be lifting, how to gauge that intensity properly, and then gauge when to increase, opposed to it just being like, every week you're going to add 5 pounds or every week you're going to add 100 calories to your diet, right? Like it needs to be more based on the biofeedback of your body and how your body is responding when it comes to you achieving your goals, right? So, you know, in this example, I think a lot of people aren't taught that, okay, this is when I understand how I'm properly achieving my, you know, perceived rate of exertion or like how hard I'm pushing myself, you know, when I'm in tune with that, I can understand when I'm ready to increase properly instead of just increasing and then using your entire body's momentum behind the movement to be able to lift that weight, right? Like you said, like you used, you know, a lat pull down, for example, and you'll often see people in the gym doing a lat pull down and they're like swinging their entire body to get that thing down, right? And it's like, okay, but like, is the goal to just say you lifted X amount of weight doing your lat pull down, or is the goal to actually grow the lats? Because if you want to grow the lats, you need to be using your lats, not your entire body. So I think that, like you said, right, like taking that time to understand, what am I supposed to be targeting in this movement? How do I effectively target this muscle group from a standpoint of making sure my mobility is where it needs to be, my range of motion is where it needs to be, my muscle is actually waking up and engaging the way that it needs to be, and then also understanding how to push my muscle from the stimulus to the standpoint of growth, but not doing it to a point where I need to compensate with other muscle groups, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I used to do. And now it's like, there are days where I'm like, I'm feeling strong. I could do this for this. And then I go to do it. And I'm like, super humbled. I'm like, I can't do that. But then you like drop your weight and then you feel better about it. And it's like just getting over that mindset obviously takes a little bit, but again, it's just all trusting the process. It kind of just goes back to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, there were certain lifts where we were really focusing on being able to hit, 1 rep, 2 rep, 3 rep maxes. But then there were other things like you had mentioned that where we were using other forms of stimulus, right? Like a burnout or being able to do a higher rep, like kind of a drop set, something like that, where, maybe you are doing higher rep range, but it's with like the whole, point, I think of this kind of point of the conversation is that there's a strategy. Like you went from just training with like this idea of like more is better to having an actual strategy of how you were training.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, I think it was really cool though one time because, you were getting so excited about being able to actually hit PRs and stuff like that. Again, it wasn't just this expectation that every week you're going to lift heavier and every week you're going to hit a PR from an ego perspective. It was like, no, I like put in the time and the effort to perfect this. And now I'm hitting a PR and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I have those like moments still and I'm like, not intentionally going in and being like, I'm going to hit a PR today. I'm going to try and do this. Like now when I hit them, I feel so much better because it's like you're actually doing the work to get there instead of just saying exactly like you said, just saying you lifted a certain amount.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I know we've chatted a lot here kind of about like your reverse phase and your build phase, but what would you say were some of the biggest results that you were able to produce from those 2 phases, like physically or, I mean, I know we talked a little bit about your lifestyle change. So let's talk about physically.
You already know what I'm going to say. The booty growth, like 110%. Like,
yes.
Hands down. I feel like not that I'm like, I guess, yeah, I'm more dominant in my lower half. I'm for sure like, I just can lift more on my bottom half than my arms. I always call my arms string beans, but like
Girl, you built some pretty nice shoulders. Let's give you the credit you deserve.
They're not anymore. They are great now and like still going, but I feel like my biggest thing was like that hourglass shape. And I will say at the start of this, like I never was like, oh, I want big juicy arms. And then I just remember like halfway through I noticed shoulder growth and like a little bit of bicep and I like messaged you immediately and I was like, let's keep going arms, like let's do more. But I will definitely say like the lower half of my body definitely like just an insane amount of growth. Like I know I sent you a photo yesterday of like a comparison of like a year ago,
girl.
And then I just like I was like, let me just go from when we started. And so like I did 3. I did 1 when we first started, 1 September 2022, and then September 2023. And it's just like the starting point to the ending. I'm not gonna say ending point, but the starting point till now, I was like, who is this person? Like never like did I think I was able to achieve a big booty. That was not in the cards for me. I thought like I would just get a little bit of shape, kind of just tone up.
Yeah. So I remember you, like, I remember our first call together, you kept saying like, well, like as much as I can, like you just kept saying that, like, I'd like to grow my glutes and I'd be like, oh, so you want big glutes? You'd be like, but yeah, well, like as much as I can. It was almost like you like didn't think that it was possible. And I was like, you just wait and see.
Yeah. I was just like, it's not in my genetics. I wasn't blessed with genetics to grow a booty. I was so wrong. Like things are looking up for me and I'm like so excited. And like September 2024 is going to be a great comparison again. And like even just kind of like my waist and like that whole section just
like waist to hip ratio.
Yeah. And like so different. And like I just look back and I'm like, I think the booty growth was the biggest thing, but kind of there and like that hourglass figure, like we really got that going too. So, and now I just see little back muscles popping up randomly. It's been good.
Yes, it's been fabulous. And I think that that's another thing that's, really important to talk about. We haven't really talked about your cut much, but you were able to obviously have a ton of growth from your beginning stage through the reverse into the maintenance and then into the surplus a little bit. We did like, a build there for a little while, but through your cut, right? A lot of people are always scared that they're going to lose their muscle mass when they go into a deficit because it's like, I just spent all this time building this muscle and now I don't want to cut and lose it all. Right. So you are now like comparing, we were talking about your comparisons from when we started to September to now. That's after a cut and you're still seeing that much change, right? So your physique has changed a lot because you were able to build strategically, but then cut strategically so that it wasn't so drastic and like way overdone that you went into a catabolic state and lost all of your muscle mass, right?
Yeah. And I had that mindset. And again, it was just like my first time going on a cut, and it was just my brain was like, she knows what she's doing. Trust this process. Like,
we've made it this far.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm going to lose everything. I just worked so hard to get to where I was. And like, I don't actually think I lost anything. Like, I genuinely don't think I lost any muscle mass at all. It just kind of all
your ratios were like,
just kept growing. I was like, this was not as scary of a process as I perhaps thought it might have been.
Yeah. And did you find that, because our cut didn't have to be super drastic, because, just to give the listeners a little bit of a context, we had reversed her all the way up to, mid 2000 calories to be able to do a maintenance, and then went into a surplus to around, I think we were around what, like 2700 at like the very top.
I think it was like 26.
Yeah.
I don't know.
26.
Yeah, I think we were going to go for 27, but then I was feeling like a little bit of a stress message.
Yeah. So I think we were around 2600 at the top. Because, we had now maintained this baseline at 2600 for a while, your cut really didn't have to be that drastic. Like, we didn't have to take your calories to be super, super low, even at the very bottom end of the cut, because we had such a vast wiggle room to be able to bring you back down into a healthy deficit, right? Whereas for a lot of people, they're sitting in the same position where you were in the beginning, eating less than 1600 calories a day. Even if you are eating 15 or 1600 calories a day, where are you moving below that to be in a deficit to take your results to the next level, right? Like, to put yourself in a deficit from there, you need to be eating like 1900 calories a day. And it's like, that's not healthy or sustainable. So, we have this high baseline that we get to start from. You only really have to go down to, like even at the bottom of a cut, like 1500 calories, 1600 calories, which is where a lot of people start from.
Yeah. Which is crazy, because that's like literally 500 calories more than I was eating to actually try and lose weight.
Yeah. And did you think that you would ever be able to like lean out and get the results that you did without having to eat less than we were?
No. And like I just remember like a week into starting, when I did my first real set of photos, I just like remember looking at them and being like, holy crap, this was from 1 week, just 1 week. And it was just like getting back into it, losing all that water weight again, like changing lifestyles. And then as we like went into our bulk, and then when we were coming back out and like still staying lean and keeping that muscle, like I just didn't think it was possible. It's like, this isn't for me. This isn't going to work. And like, I doubted everything in my brain, and not to say that I doubted you, but like, it was my first time going through this process. So my brain was like, I don't even know what to expect. I've never done a bulk. I've never done a cut, and everything that I thought it was going to be, it was the opposite. Everything I thought was going to happen, gaining weight, like obviously in my bulk, I did gain a little bit of weight. Like obviously you're going to when you're eating that many calories.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a scary amount. And it was like, I still
going
felt
to the right places.
Yeah. And like, I still felt good about myself. And it was like, I didn't expect that to happen. And then I went through my cut and I maintained everything, got super lean. And I was like, whoa.
Didn't know this was possible without 6 cardio days a week and eating a salad for every meal.
Yep. Yeah, I did a lot of cardio before.
Yeah, but I mean, we really didn't do that much throughout our program together, right? Like, I think, we got to a point where we were doing it 2 or 3 times a week, and that was it.
Yeah. And like, even when we did cardio that many times a week, it was not even a lot. Like, it was like 30 minutes of my choice.
Yeah. Like usually incline walks or something lower impact, so we weren't getting you to be too stressed out.
Yeah. Like I did Stairmaster and then an incline walk. It was like so chill. And sprints, which like, I was like, this is not fun for me. And then I did sprints and I was like, whoa, that was actually kind of fun. I'm kind of into that. So I think I would like
pushing you out of your comfort zone to try new things.
Yeah. I remember the first time I was doing them, I was like, what am I doing? And then I did them and I was like, I feel so good after doing that. Yeah, but even that wasn't even lot. I think it was like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was
usually
easy.
probably about like 8 to 10 of them.
Yeah. And it was easy and it was not a lot of time and it wasn't scary. And it was definitely less than what I used to think I had to do. It was like, always thought it was like an hour of cardio after every lift. That's too much.
Yep. Yeah. No, seriously. So basically, you know, just to kind of recap, you went from doing or thinking you needed to do an hour of cardio after every lift, working out, trying to lift as heavy as physically possible, regardless of form or execution, eating inconsistently, but just like trying to follow a healthy diet and not really focusing on your sleep or your stress or anything, right? And not getting the results from those things, to sleeping more, resting more, eating more, and training more efficiently and less cardio, and got way better results.
Precisely. Yes, exactly. Like, exactly. I just think so much of like our first conversation. I was like, I know what I'm doing. And like every day I was proved wrong.
You being like, hey, so actually I didn't.
I thought I did. I was like, yeah, I'm good. But also, and then I hit a point where I was like, maybe I don't, because I'm not really gaining muscle. And like when I did lose a lot of weight, it was because I bought one of those like fit girl guides and like just unrealistic things. And it wasn't like
not maintainable.
Yeah, it wasn't maintainable. And it was more of like a chore than it was to actually just have fun. And that was kind of like the process with this, is that even though it's like working with a coach, and some people think that like working with a coach is going to be like scary and feel like work and stuff like that, but you always made it very easy and you always made it so that I would enjoy my workouts. Like if there was anything in the program that I was like, I don't really want to do that other than deadlifts, of which you really made me do this so I could nail them. But other than those, I genuinely enjoyed everything.
I was like, we're going to do them until you can do them and then we'll take them out. But we need to make sure you can.
Yeah, you're just like, you keep doing these. And I was like, oh, please, no. But I think that was the only thing that you kept in the program. Anything else, you were like, let's change it. Let's make this fun for you. And like, let's do what you want to do to still get the results that you want, which was
for sure, because you want it to be something that, you know, you're looking forward to doing and it's becoming a part of your life that you enjoy and you use as an outlet, right? Not something that you like hate doing and you're only doing because you feel like you have to be able to get the result that you want.
Yeah. And I always loved going to the gym. Like it was like a safe space to kind of get out of like my head for an hour, 2 hours. But when I was doing it on my own, it was like I was so focused on like the wrong things of just like trying to lift more. And I was never able to just like really get into a comfortable zone. And then the past year and a half, I feel like I was able to go to the gym. I have my plan. I know it's going to work. I'm trusting this process. And like, I always felt really good after my workouts. I never felt like, okay, I lifted that, feel like didn't do much. And like, I always leave feeling like, yeah, we killed it today.
Yeah, for sure. And did you feel like having something laid out for you where you can just go in, follow it, and then like be done and leave helps with that feeling like you know that you did exactly what you needed to do?
Yeah, like so easy. And like also just the way that I think I laid out my workouts beforehand, it wasn't proper. Like you just think like, okay, this. And like there is an actual like form to how you should be doing things and like an order of which you should be putting exercises, which I didn't even know until we started working together. And I always felt that like having that plan and just like knowing exactly what to do was really helpful. And I remember just like one time I was at the gym and I was lifting and this guy came out to me and he was like, oh, you're like, you really know what you're doing, right? And I was like, I mean, no, like, sure, yeah. And he's like, oh, I just like noticed that your workouts are like really well put together, like the order you're doing things. I was like, oh, thanks so much. And he's like, if you are looking for like a coach or a trainer and you want to like continue all that, like you should come to me. And I just looked at him and I was like, I got one. I'm good. But thank you so much for trying to.
Thanks for coming out.
And I think I told you about that when it first happened, because I was like, hey, your workouts are actually amazing. Like this trainer just came up and said, your workouts are bomb. You're doing all the right things. And I was like, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
compliment to you, honestly, because
I
it was
know.
like awful.
That's cool though that somebody like took notice, right? I had a client the other day also message me and be like, yeah, some people just came up to me at the gym and told me I should like consider being a trainer. And I was like, oh God, you guys are working hard, killing it.
It was like, it is all you. But yeah, I think the plan like definitely helps, and like understanding what workouts to do when, and like also being able to switch things out was really helpful for me too. Like there were some days where my gym was just super busy and I wasn't able to get a certain machine, and being able to see like other ways to do that workout, or like
Yeah, like
similar
substitutes.
workouts. Yeah, it was super helpful too. That so I could just like go in quickly, be like, okay, I can't do that. Like, let me switch this out really quick for something at just as equal or similar.
Yeah. And I think that that's a big key component of working with a coach is that, obviously having your plan and being told what to do is a huge piece of the puzzle to understand how to get results. But I think the educational component of understanding the why is really important as well. And that's one thing that I do try to do with having access to our client drive with all the educational videos and the PDFs and all of that on top of our weekly check-ins where we discuss this stuff is that, I want you to understand, okay, well, why are we doing these exercises in the order that we're doing them? Or why are we piecing these two exercises together, right? So then that way, at some point in the future, when you're putting together workouts yourself, or you need to, improvise something or whatever, you feel confident in putting that together and making that decision yourself, right? Instead of feeling like you need me to hold your hand through every decision that you're doing. It's like if I equipped you with the education and the tools, like you're going to be more self-sufficient to understand how to do those things on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And this was like my first week without the plan. And like I just felt confident going into it, and like
Yeah.
knew
Which is
what I was
exactly what we want when you graduate, right? Like, it's kind of
yeah.
like you want to be able to take everything that you learned and actually be able to implement it, not be in this situation where you're like, hey, what now?
Yeah, exactly. So it's been super helpful.
Yay. And what would you say is been, if you had to choose one thing? I mean, I'm sure there's probably lots of things that you enjoyed, but what was kind of your favorite part of your coaching experience?
It's so hard.
You're
There's
like,
like
to
so many,
me.
I think there's just like so many things that like improved in the entire process. But I think like my favorite thing of the experience was genuinely just having your support. Like, as much as I can say, like, I really enjoyed like seeing these results or like improving this part of myself, I think that like having support from coaching in general was the biggest thing that I could have taken out of it. And it was like when I was super confused about something, I would just message you right away and be like, SOS, please help. I don't understand. And you were like always on it, explained a lot. And like I learned a lot from that. And it was just like anytime I didn't understand or like needed a bit more clarification, or when my body was going through some weird things, and you helped me get through that and kind of gave me different, like, okay, you could try this, you could try this. And having that support mentally and just like kind of at a hand for me was really, really helpful. And I think also just like the community, I remember at the beginning with that group chat, everyone just kind of like talking to each other, or like having somebody to like also hit a water goal or a step goal. Like, I think just in general, the amount of support you get from it kind of overcomes everything, because you can really do the workouts and eat the food at home, but like having somebody there for you to kind of cheer you on, and like that's going through the same kind of process as you, was really, really helpful.
For sure. And I think that, a lot of people, we have people in our life that support us in a grand scheme. Like they obviously love us. They want what's best for us, but they don't necessarily understand what you're going through. Right. And I think having people in your corner who understand what you're going through on the same level can really be a different experience and kind of make or break your experience in your own journey, because having that, like you said, that layer of support of somebody that has similar goals to you, is showing up to do the same things every day, like, other people in the community, it really allows you to be like, okay, they're doing it, I can do it too, right? Or like from the coaching standpoint, if you're having a really hard week and you're like this close to giving up, having that person be there to be like, no, dude, look how far you've already come. Look what you've accomplished. All you're seeing it as this negativity, but look at all these positives from the week. It takes that 99% of like, I'm ready to give up, to twist it and be like, no, you can still do this. And then you continue going. Right. So, if you're trying to do it all on your own all the time, I think that's why a lot of people don't remain consistent, right? Is because those challenging moments, like that's when we concede, and then we have to start over, get back on the wagon. Whereas when you have somebody in your corner being like, no, like you can do this, you just continue to be consistent. And
yeah. And I think there was like 1 week that like really stood out for me a lot during this process was you didn't even know that I was like going through like a rough week of like feeling like not great about my body and not feeling great about my progress, even though like I had come such a long way, but it was just like one of those down weeks. And I just remember you sent me a photo and you're like, I was just going through and like, this was you at like 130 pounds then, and this is you at 130 pounds now. And like, you were like, look at this difference. And that helped me get through whatever mental barrier I was going through. And I was like, holy crap, you're right. And like
completely different body composition.
Yeah. And just like having that person, and like, even when I was going through rough things and I would tell you about it, you were really there. But even when I didn't tell you about it, you were still so supportive. And having that support in your corner was just super changing for the whole experience.
Well, I'm glad that you found it so helpful. I know I'm like, I'm just here creeping on your progress photos, and this is what I found today.
I was just like in such a weird mental dump that week too. I don't know why. It was just one of those weeks. And I was like, oh, I'm just feeling not great. I don't think my body's going to go further than this. And I was like, I'm not seeing any difference. But then again, just like goes into a lot of like body dysmorphia sometimes.
Yeah,
especially
you get in your own head. I do it all the time too.
Yeah. And I'm like, I still see myself as like how I was when I first started. And then you sent me that comparison and I was like,
you were like,
hey. I was like, you know what? You're right. It is working. We're doing things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think honestly, the support, like anybody can, come up with a workout plan or a nutrition plan. Like, is there going to be differentiations? Are some of them probably going to be more effective than others? Sure. But I think when it comes down to it, it's really, like you said, the support and the relationships that you develop when going through this experience that really stick with you, that allow you to maintain everything that you learn and continue to want to implement it, because it really helps it all like stick in your brain and you build the habits, right? Opposed to just getting the information.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what would you say to somebody who wants results right now, this minute, like yesterday, and doesn't want to take the time to maybe go through this whole process, or is like nervous to invest in getting the proper help, or like is scared of eating more, the reverse diet phase? Like, what would you tell them now, having, looking at hindsight and seeing everything it's done for you?
I think it just like, it takes time, and it's something that nobody really thinks, but like, trust the process. It takes time. And like, at the end of the day, if like you, like that was me, I was like, I want a result right now. Like this, I worked so hard. I was like, I just want to see a result. I'd like do a little ab workout and then come home and be like, do I have abs yet? No, I'm not going to get that. But I think just like take the time, and like, you're only going to get out of the experience and out of, the gym what you ultimately put into it. And if you're not going to take the time to like eat the healthy food and work out and like get that extra support, like you're not going to see the results. And that's exactly what happened to me. And it was like I was putting in the effort, but I wasn't putting in the right effort. And as soon as I like actually took a step back and said, I want to make a change and I want to make a lifestyle change, as soon as I did that and we started working together, that's when things started happening for me. And I can still eat ice cream and I can still eat pizza. Maybe not eating ice cream 5 times a week like I had that one. It was like a small accident, but Scout wanted the ice cream. How could I say no? Like
those puppy dog eyes.
I had to also get ice cream, but it's like you can do these things and still, and by do these things, have ice cream like in moderation, not 5 times a week. Let me clarify. And you can still do these things with seeing the results. And I think when people like, don't want to like get a coach or like put the proper effort, they think they can just like eat whatever they want, do a little bit of extra cardio, and then see results. And like a lot of and I used to like be a culprit of it myself. I'd like go to the gym, work really hard, and then be like, I'm gonna go get a Big Mac. I'm gonna go do this. And like, it's not
Treat
how it works.
yourself.
And it's like, you're not going to see the results. And it just like honestly takes so much time. And that's something that I've had to learn a lot through this process, is that like, it is all just time. Like,
I'm in commitment.
Yeah. And it's like, you're not going to get results right away. Like, it's going to take months, years, however long you put into it. But ultimately, like, you get out of it what you put into it. So
yeah, 100%. And I think like on the concept, just closing thoughts, the concept of time is that I often say to people like, what's your rush? Because, you want the result now, but if you're not willing to do the work that it takes to get the result in a more realistic way, you're just going to continue to be where you are right now, 6 months from now. So what's the difference if you take 6 months to do things properly and actually get where you want to be and be able to maintain that, versus taking 6 months of this on and off again, like trying to go balls to the wall and then giving up, and trying to go balls to the wall and giving up. And 6 months from now, you're exactly where you are right now, right? Like, what's going to be a more beneficial situation? Like 6 months is going to pass whether you like it or not, right? So do you want to be the same that you are right now because you didn't take proper action, or do you want to take the action that is frustrating because you don't see the results right away?
yeah, exactly. And like, that kind of goes back to how I was before I started like lifting heavier than I should have for each exercise. And it was like trying to get things done faster and like thinking like, if I lift this much now, I'm going to build more muscle and do this. And like, it's not the case. And you kind of just have to like take things slow.
Yeah, it's also funny because like people think that, you can build this Arnold Schwarzenegger muscle overnight and look like a man, right? Like, from the standpoint of if you want to build muscle or you don't, there's people that are terrified and are like, I'm not touching a dumbbell because I'm scared I'm going to look like a boy. And then there's the people that are like, I'm going to ego lift and like lift as physically as possible heavily right now because I'll get it faster. And it's like, muscle T is really hard to build, guys. Like, don't get freaked out about building too much muscle or, try to overdo it and build it faster, because it takes time and it takes a lot of strategy to build muscle properly.
Yeah. And also like the stigma of like looking like a guy if you have muscle. I'm like, shut up. I
try to do that and I still don't. So
I was like, give me all the muscle. Like, I will keep going. And like, I was like, I think like the more muscle, like the hotter you'll be forever. Like, just keep building every single ounce of muscle. Like, you're not going to look like a guy. Like,
no. And a lot of women don't realize that after the age of 30, your metabolism slows down like every year, right? And you have the chance of getting muscle is less and less like as you get older. So if you're not taking the time to strategically put on muscle mass, it's going to be easier for you to gain more weight as you age because your metabolism is going to be slower. You're going to have less muscle on your frame. So I always say to women, like, you're terrified of gaining muscle mass, but that's what you actually need to not gain weight as you get older. So, it's kind of like a catch-22.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, give me literally the Rock Johnson arms. Like, this is all I want. It's like, want my arms out like this.
Oh, you're just like,
yeah.
Oh, love it.
You've done like the Rock leg workout.
Oh God, yeah, I've seen that.
It's hard. I did it once before we started, and I was like, "What is this? Like, this isn't even fun."
I know, it's crazy. I saw that once. I think he also has a knee injury though, so I think it's like really modified to be like supposed to be like, it's like I think if I'm not mistaken, it's like a bazillion leg extensions, isn't it?
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is because he was trying to like rehab his knee, but yeah.
I mean, that would make sense. It's honestly like a really intense workout. I did it once and I was like, why does anybody do this for fun? This is not fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's probably on the sauce. So that's probably why he's able to do it. But
100%.
Oh, do you have any last tips, tricks, messages for any of the listeners before we close off today?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like we touched on everything. It's just more like, get a coach, do what you go do, be your best self, and like, you're gonna do great regardless. Just a whole lot of like trusting the process, and like, don't be scared to eat the food. Don't be scared to lift the weight, just push, do it.
Make the commitment to yourself. If you're going to do it right.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your experiences and your insight and your knowledge that you have gained. And, I have loved working with you so much. So I'm sure the listeners will love hearing all about this. For anybody listening, if you guys want to leave a rating or a review on whatever platform you're listening to, that would be awesome. And I will see you guys in the next episode.
So I hope that provided some insight and some inspiration with showing you what is possible. But let's be real, if you're serious about achieving this level of transformation, the most powerful next step that you can take is letting me design you a strategy that is customized to your body, your goals, and your lifestyle, and then letting me guide you through it. So if you're ready for real results that last without the burnout, click the link below and let's chat.